Now before we get into the video, I do want to say a massive thank you to today's video sponsors, and once again that is jerseyfifa.com. They really do help keep the content on this channel going, and they even sent me a free shirt which you can see on screen here. And as you can see, I got the new Manchester United home kit, and genuinely the kit really is top quality. I highly recommend their product. So make sure to get in a link in the description down below, and now if you use code JerseyFifa at checkout, you'll get 10% off your order. You get a great football shirt, and you help support the channel, which I really do appreciate massively.
Hey guys, welcome back to the AJ Analysis channel. I hope you're all well and having a good week. Today I want to talk about Jadon Sancho because, as you can tell from the thumbnail and the title of the video, I think he's doing okay at the moment, but I think he can do better. And I don't think we're seeing the best of him at Manchester United yet. Now, I was a person that very much wanted this signing to happen for several years before he moved to United. So when it finally happened last summer, I was really excited. But for one reason or another, he hasn't quite kicked on. And I think some of that is down to him as a player. Some of it is down to him from a mental point of view, psychologically. And then some of it is to do with the system and just the current situation at United. So I want to go through a couple of those things and kind of figure out what the issue is. Now, some people think this is weird timing for this video because he has actually started the season okay. He's got 3 goals in 9 games, which isn't a bad start to the season, but I just think no assists in any of the competitions and certain performances, I think we can expect more from him. I think that's okay. But as well as on the ball, I think we need to see more from him from a defensive point of view as well, and that's the thing I want to focus on first. So the way that Manchester United kind of defend at the moment is they don't fully commit to a press. They sort of half press, there is pressure on the play, but not fully. And typically what happens is Marcus Rashford splits the defence, forcing them to move one way. So let's say the goalkeeper has the ball here. Once it then goes to one of the centre-backs, Rashford will then come in between them, and that forces them down one side of the pitch, especially with Bruno on the holding midfielder. Now, firstly, Rashford doesn't always get this spot on, which doesn't necessarily help the press. So with Martial returning to fitness, that should help that issue. But I just think, and this kind of goes for several of the United forwards, Sancho needs to defend with more intensity to his game. He kind of gets into situations, he does track players. You can't call him lazy because he does track players. He does cover the ground. But he just seems really standoffish once he's actually got to a player. So here, for example, Martial or Rashford will split the defence, they'll force him one side, it'll go to the fullback. Sancho will get up towards the fullback, but there then seems to be this hesitance to actually commit to making the tackle. And it happened against Manchester City the other day. There was a player he tracked all the way back into his own half here somewhere. He tracked him all the way, but then didn't tackle him. Kind of at the last minute, he kind of stood off him and let him have the ball. So, psychologically, from a defensive point of view, that is something that Ten Hag needs to address, because we kind of see the same thing for Marcus Rashford as well. And it's a concern that I personally have, because to play in these top teams these days, you have to do that defensive side of the game. Where's the stat I'm looking for? This is compared to Antony on the right wing. Now, for me personally, I think Antony does it better. I think he commits to a challenge more, he always makes more of an effort to get back and then put a tackle in. I don't think he's perfect at it, but I think he's better. And we see that in these stats here, where if we look at the blocks, this top set is Sancho. This top set is Sancho, this bottom set is Antony. We can see that Antony is cutting more passes, he's blocking passes, intercepting passes, and putting tackles in much more than what Sancho does. So why isn't Sancho doing it? And I think, like I said, that is something that Ten Hag needs to speak to him about, it's something that needs to be addressed, but also a lot of it just has to come down to Sancho. Because like I said, tactically he is in the position to do it, he does get into the areas, he does track to an extent, and he also does press to an extent, but there just needs to be more intensity to what he's doing. Once you're there, just commit to trying to make the tackle, really put a player under pressure, really hassle them. He doesn't seem to do it, and as a result it does leave Malacia exposed at times, or Dallo if Sancho's on the right wing. He needs to do more, he does need to do more. He also needs to do more on the ball as well, because we were looking at these stats earlier saying, 3 goals in the first 9 games of the season is not bad for a winger, but we know that he can do so much better. And we saw it in his last 2 seasons for Borussia Dortmund here, where the numbers are ridiculous. One year he got 20 goals and 20 assists, the other year he got 20 assists, 16 goals. He hasn't got a single assist yet this season, and last season we know his numbers were poor as well. So something has to change on the ball as well. I think off the ball there's an intensity issue, so what is the issue on the ball? That's what I want to try and figure out and discuss. Because if we look at his FB ref report, the numbers aren't good enough. In terms of pass completion, progressive carries, dribbles completed, they're okay numbers. But non-penalty goals, non-penalty XG, shots, assists, expected assisted, non-penalty expected goals and expected assists, and shot-creating actions are all far lower than what they should be. Sancho is capable of so much better than this. And I want to figure out what the problem is. Why isn't he doing that? And to give him kind of, to support him a little bit, some of the issue is the system. And I want to start off with that. Because the way that we see Manchester United play at the moment is sort of like this. So Bruno Fernandes and Eriksen kind of operate in the half spaces. And then we see Antony and, at the moment, Sancho really holding the width on the wings. We then see the centre-backs, of course, are quite deep. And the full-backs play not only inverted, but also quite reserved and passive. Now, that's okay. The full-backs can be inverted. But I still think they can contribute a bit more going forward. So if we talk about Manchester City, when their full-backs invert, Cancelo is often quite inverted. He's still really attacking. Whereas the way that the Manchester United players are playing at the moment, the full-backs, is they're inverted but also passive. And there's no real intention to get forward. That does not suit Jadon Sancho at all. Because what it means is that he can regularly be put in a 2 versus 1 out here. The opposition winger can track all the way back onto Sancho because they know that Malacia or Shaw isn't really going to get forward and really threaten them just because that's not their role in the team at the moment. And like I said, that means you can 2 versus 1 Jadon Sancho, and that's very difficult. If you look at the best teams in Europe, not many of them get their wingers into 2 versus 1 situations on a regular basis. United do it on both sides. Antony is having a similar issue, where the opposition winger will drop in alongside the fullback, and it constantly means that Manchester United wingers are having to 2v1 players. Wingers are like any other position on the pitch. We talk about going the other way, the wingers have to support the fullbacks defensively. Well, to an extent, the fullbacks also have to support the wingers offensively, and at the moment they're not doing that. The other issue is a mentality issue with Jadon Sancho, in my opinion. In the sense that I think he is far too safe. Now what we see at the moment is he often gets the ball, actually particularly last season we saw this as well, he kind of get the ball on the halfway line, he'll carry it up the pitch to about here, he'll then get up against his fullback and he'll turn around and just play the ball here. So he's carried the team up the pitch and then released the ball, you know, he's done something okay, but I just think he'll be a bit braver, be a bit bolder on the ball, get at his man and try and make something happen. And he's just not really doing that. And again, if we go to his FBref report, it's here somewhere, we can see that the pass completion, the progressive carries, the dribbles are all reasonably high. But I actually wouldn't mind if they were a bit lower, if it meant that he was trying other things as well. There just seems to be this safety on the ball, and I do think it's a mentality issue, because he didn't have it at Borussia Dortmund. Now, in the past few weeks, I've seen people saying he should change position because he isn't quick enough to play on the wing. Now, if you want to see a video on that, let me know in the comments down below, because I would like to talk about it. But I don't think it's true that he's not quick enough. Yes, he isn't Marcus Rashford. He hasn't got that raw acceleration or Vinicius Jr. or someone like that. But technical dribblers have excelled in the Premier League before. Think of Eden Hazard, for example. Even Jack Grealish is doing pretty well at the moment, and has done for several seasons. So the myth, like kind of the idea that Sancho isn't quick enough, I don't think is true. I think it's a mentality issue. He has to be much bolder in the way that he plays. There almost seems this fear of losing possession at the moment, and it leads to these numbers, where the pass completion is high, the dribbles completed is high, the progressive carries is high. But those numbers in that top section there, the non-penalty goals, the contributing in the final third, those numbers are low because he's playing far too safe. And that is a mentality issue. That is something that he has to sort out. Now, when he was at Dortmund, that wasn't the case. He was a very brave, confident, bold player. So what has changed there? That's not a rhetorical question. I'd like to know your thoughts in the comments down below. What do you think has changed? When we watched him for Borussia Dortmund, he'd get the ball, he'd see the fullback in front of him, and he would go at him straight away. Nearly every time, always trying to make something happen, or he might be moving inside, trying to make something happen, constantly getting at players. At United, that isn't happening. Now, is that just a pressure of playing for a bigger club? Don't get me wrong, Dortmund are a big club, but Manchester United are bigger in terms of the size of the fan base, the response online, the media scrutiny. Is he a little bit worried about losing possession for his side? Does he think if he keeps the ball, it's better? You know, he doesn't get stick. If he doesn't really do anything, he doesn't really do anything wrong. Is that the idea? I'm not sure. Now, there are issues tactically as well, because with Borussia Dortmund, they fed Jadon Sancho constantly. He was the man. Yes, they had Jude Bellingham, Marco Reus, Erling Haaland, all very good footballers, but Sancho was the man that they built all of their attacks through. Everything went through Sancho. He doesn't have that luxury at Manchester United, so it's difficult to expect, if we go back to those numbers from earlier, it's difficult to expect him to replicate these numbers when he's literally getting half the ball of what he was getting. Like, statistically, he gets about 60% of the ball, 60% of the touches, sorry, I should say, that he was getting for Dortmund. So he can't produce these same numbers. But still, something has to change. I think Ten Hag tactically can change it a little bit. I think he needs players around him. Sancho has always been a player that has benefited, one, when he's had a fullback overlapping him, but also just numbers in and around him where he can link the play. He really is a linking, interchanging player, linking up with those around him, making things happen with quick passing, quick movement, passes around the corner, things like that. That is what Sancho has always been best at, especially in the final third. That is where he thrives. At the moment, he isn't really getting in those situations. Now, the issue isn't the same for Antony on the right wing. Antony is a much better isolation winger. He is happy to be kind of stay out of play, receive the switch pass, then get his fullback. He's happy to do that. Sancho wants to be much more involved, and he isn't getting the opportunity to do that on the left wing at the moment. I would consider moving him inside into a more narrow position, where I think he'd just get more of the ball, more of the action, and I think that's where we'd see him better. Again, if we go back to his stats this season so far, 3 goals, if you look back at them, all of them have come when he's been playing really narrow. All of his goals have come from really central positions. So United need to make an effort to get him into that position more. The question is, how do they do that? And I think there needs to be a movement of the fullback. Now, whether it's Malacia or Luke Shaw, it doesn't really matter too much. Perhaps Luke Shaw would actually be better for this role. I think something needs to change, and if it was me, I would be looking to push the left back much higher up the pitch and have them as your width, not Jadon Sancho. Jadon Sancho does not need to be the wide player. Let the fullback be the wide player and let Sancho come into this area where he can really operate. Now, in terms of the balance of the rest of the team, it means something like this happens. Dalot plays a little bit deeper, and McTominay and Eriksen plays a double pivot, or McTominay out Casemiro, something like that. Or it could even be built like this as well, a 2-3 like this. I just think United need to get the left back pushing forward, allowing Sancho to come inside, especially with Martial now coming back to fitness. I think that would really benefit United. Martial's ability to drop in and link the play, combining with the intelligence of Jadon Sancho, could be really dangerous. It would also allow Bruno Fernandes to move to the right-hand side of the attack, providing more balance. At the moment, we see Fernandes this side, Sancho out here, and it leaves this massive gap on the right-hand side where nothing's really happening. So again, moving Sancho inside, moving him a little bit narrower, it would help United's attack. I really think it's something that Ten Hag should consider, and get this confident Borussia Dortmund youngster doing it for Manchester United on a more regular basis. We've seen him doing it in glimpses, we've seen it here and there, the quality is clearly there, incredible player, but something's not quite right. The confidence isn't quite right, that's something that him and Ten Hag need to discuss between them, that's something that they need to figure out, but then also tactically, I think Ten Hag can do things to help Sancho more. Really get the best out of him, because if United can get the best out of Jadon Sancho, they have one of the best attacking footballers in the world. They really do. They chased him for years in the transfer market, but now they kind of got him and not really used him properly at any point, for any sustained period, I should say. I think now is the time that they need to do that, and the way I would do it is by moving Sancho inside. So yes, there are things he needs to sort out. He has to defend with more intensity off the ball. He has to do that. There's no discussion about it. He has to, I wouldn't even say it's working harder, just be more intense. When you get in the face of a player, actually then tackle them. And also make sure you're helping your fullback out defensively. Then on the ball, I think he needs to take more risks. Now Ten Hag needs to give him the license to do that, but Sancho then also has to be willing to do it himself. He has to be willing to lose possession every now and then to try and make things happen. And then finally, I think the system change would help do that. That's my thoughts on it though. I'd be interested to hear what you think in the comments down below. What do you think is the problem with Sancho, or do you think there isn't a problem? Do you think he's playing really well? And if you do think there are problems, how would you go about solving them? This is how I would do it. A slight change in structure, slight change in system, slight change in approach, get Sancho into different areas where he's linking with different players, got plenty of players around him, and then as his confidence builds, I think we'll start to see the best of Jadon Sancho in a Manchester United shirt. Hopefully we see it, because I want to see good footballers playing, especially for United. But yeah, that's my thoughts. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you have enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.